We're on the last lap now of the show, and we're talking about the September inflation report. It was released on Wednesday by the National Bureau of Statistics. Now, according to the Bureau of Statistics, for September, headline inflation rose by about 10 basis points for a second consecutive month to 9.4%. Now, it was as a result of price increases in both food and non-food components, particularly alcoholic beverage, tobacco and cola, water, electricity, gas, and other fuel divisions. We're taking a look at this and, of course, the likely impact on the economy going forward with Professor Ken Ife. He's a public sector analyst. So good morning to you, Professor.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on the program. So we're talking about the economy, and of course this week, in the course of everything that happened, this inflation report kind of got lost. But what are your thoughts on these numbers? We're seeing it now at 9.4%, a steady inching towards that 10% threshold that the Central Bank of Nigeria is hoping it doesn't get to.
Not good. Okay. Well, it is a bit of a surprise because it is the context in which it is rising that creates alarm. And I hope we'll have time to discuss that. With Nigeria entering recession, that is a context that makes it really very, very troublesome.
Professor, Nigeria's economy hasn't entered recession just yet.
We can debate that.
Most economic analysts say we're at a stagflation, and there's a possibility of entering a recession. So let's not hit the panic button before it's time.
We'll get into that argument. It's a matter of evidence. Now, of course, a big component of this small uptick is imported inflation, because if you look at those prices that have shown an uptick, it's partly because of the foreign component of those. But the agricultural products in the sub-index of the consumer price index that you would expect to go down because of seasonal variation, because we are harvesting. You would have expected the staple food, the yam, the cocoa, all that stuff, the cocoa yam, all of those would have come down. But they are holding their price. And that would have dampened the small increase that you saw on the foreign component. But it worries me, because now that we are harvesting yam and the prices are keeping up when it should have been down, then what will happen when we approach December? But there should also be mindful of the impact of the Muslim festival, because that the Muslim holiday festival, just as you would expect when you have Christmas, there's always a general slight increase in prices because of those holiday periods.
No, so looking at those numbers now, do you think that it's something to begin to worry about, especially since, as we said, rather as I said, some analysts are saying that the economy is in stagflation, and the Central Bank of Nigeria has said a lot needs to be done at this time to ensure that by 2016 the economy doesn't go into a recession. Right.
If you want to go into the recession argument, you present the figures are there. But the thing is this: we know that the general consumption in the economy is shrinking, and it's shrinking alongside a significant drop in our GDP. You won't appreciate that drop until you disaggregate the drop, and then you find out that the manufacturing sector has taken a big hit, dropping by 10 percentage points. And that is very, very worrisome, because some part of it could be attributed to the oil glut, but then the others the manufacturers are complaining very severely that some of the restrictions are affecting their raw materials import into and they're having to lay off staff. But then, just to focus on the issue of the impact, the thing is that if you look at the business profits, is coming down. Investment decisions are being held up simply because there's uncertainty. People need to see clear strategic direction, but there's also problems in the economy, so investors are holding back. The household income is shrinking. Household consumption, which accounts for a huge proportion of the GDP figure, is also shrinking. We know that there has been massive intervention to pay the salaries of the staff of the government, state governments, federal government has been borrowing since last year to pay salaries. Everybody knows that. But the private sector is in trouble. Those who have been exposed to government contracts, they're in trouble. They're laying staff, and their suppliers also need to be paid. So let's validate who is really owing what, and then find a way of addressing that, so that we'll stop the dampening that is being caused by the private sector level of debt. So that's very important. Then, of course, the other indicators include the business profits and then unemployment rising. Now, at the back of when you are approaching a recession, or you are in recession, the last thing you want to go up is inflation. The thing you expect to go down is interest rates. Now, those two are moving in opposite direction. And so the CBN must attack this, head on. It has to do this by reducing the MPR rates, maybe gradually from 13 to 12, 11, but also needs to attack the yield on securities. The yield is very high, 13, 14, 15%.
You have to remember that, alongside all of this, the Central Bank of Nigeria also has to deal with other issues apart from the fact that we have inflation. We have to look at the exchange rate volatility, for instance. So you have the inflation, you have exchange rate volatility, as well as other monetary policy actions that it has to take with regards to stabilizing the economy.
But that is not, I appreciate the core role of the central bank is price control, which connects to inflation, and also financial system stability. But it's also the economic advisor to the government. And it has another role of promoting sustainable economic development. So it doesn't have to think only about those prices. They have to think about, is the 100-pound gorilla out there at the moment? Because, as you know, the fiscal policy is not complementing the enormous stance that they're taking on monetary policy. So that will change as soon as the Minister of Finance goes into office. But at the moment, it's the 100-pound gorilla out there. And we must make sure that it takes into a full account. And I'm sure there's good news, though. If you look at the result of the MPC meeting, I saw 8 times instances of references to unemployment and the economic growth, which is good news. They are really beginning to think about it. But we need more pressing, more urgent action right now to bring more confidence to the private sector that they can go ahead and invest more and boost domestic consumption. Okay,
so Professor, we're clearly out of time, but in 30 seconds or so, can you just predict if we're going to see this inflation figure continue to trend upwards, or do you expect to see it just remain stagnant?
It will go upwards, but I think there's an action that was alluded to by the previous speaker, Femi, to the effect that if we now have a big problem because of the reduction in the external revenue, we have to subject every sector of the economy to export competitiveness test. And that means that since our Nollywood is exporting, our banks are exporting, our sweet crude that has been the toast of the international community is no longer a great demand, then what about education? Agriculture is the obvious suspect because it creates most of the employment. 70% of the employment is in agriculture. Young people, their jobs are in agriculture more than anywhere else. But look at education. What is big about education? 150 universities in 177 million people. America has less than about 300 million people, but have 2,600 universities. China sends 6.5 million people abroad for training. Most of them go to America. England, 40 universities in London, over 500,000 people that are being trained. They're earning 8-9 billion pounds. So we should look at it. Is it paying hundreds of billions, sending people to Ghana, sending our people abroad? We have to look at that. Well, and Professor, so are other sectors. ICT, why is it not earning us a lot of money abroad? Professor, so all these sectors must be subjected to export competitiveness tests. They should not earn us foreign exchange. Those are the tough choices that we need to make. But thank you so much, Professor, for coming on the program this morning. Professor Ken Ife is a public sector analyst sharing his perspectives with regards, of course, the September inflation report and other issues that have come up in conversations on the program today. But that's it on Business Morning for today. Many thanks for spending time with us. I'm Harriet Agbinyi. Have a profitable day and a great weekend.